Just moments ago, the world was left in a state of profound shock. Behind the heavy, gilded doors of Kensington Palace, a final, devastating chapter was written in a story that has gripped the globe for years. This wasn't a routine royal update. It was a system reaching its absolute breaking point. Prince William, the man who will one day carry the weight of the crown, has reportedly emerged from a high-stakes secret meeting with a resolve that is as tragic as it is irreversible. What we are witnessing tonight is not just a family dispute. It is the moment the palace machine finally dropped the mask. For months, we've been fed polished narratives of privacy and healing, but the reality behind the stone walls is far colder. Imagine the scene. A king's heir standing side by side with the ghosts of his past, finally admitting that the bridge across the Atlantic hasn't just been burned, it has been dismantled. William's eyes, according to those who saw him leave, were not filled with anger, but with a sharp, chilling grief. This was not the voice of a brother looking for reconciliation. This was the voice of a monarch in waiting, making a surgical decision for the survival of the institution. He has reportedly confirmed the tragic end to any hope of Harry's return to the royal fold. This wasn't transparency. It was the truth being dragged out at the last possible moment because the silence had become too loud to ignore. You see, the monarchy doesn't just manage feelings, it manages perception, and that is where this crisis truly began. For years, William and Harry were the symbol of a modern, united future. But tonight, that fairy tale has officially met its end. Like a house with cracked walls, you cannot fix the foundation by hanging beautiful paintings. William has looked at the cracks, he has seen the damage, and he has decided that for the crown to survive, the exile must remain permanent. This wasn't just a meeting, it was a confession of a broken bond. As the cameras focus on the eerie silence of the palace gates tonight, one thing is devastatingly clear. The Prince of Wales has chosen the crown over his own blood, and the price of that choice will haunt the monarchy for generations to come. To understand how we arrived at this moment of finality, we have to look past the polished press releases and into the months of calculated silence that preceded this summit. This wasn't a sudden fracture. It was a slow, agonizing unraveling of a bond that once felt unbreakable. For years, the public saw two brothers standing shoulder to shoulder. But behind the gates, a different narrative was being constructed, one of secrecy, control, and an increasingly rigid adherence to royal protocol. Prince William, often seen as the steady hand of the monarchy, has been navigating a world where privacy is used as a shield to manage information and delay uncomfortable truths. He isn't just a brother anymore. He has become the architect of a new, uncompromising era of the crown. The whisper protocol, those quiet conversations exchanged in the shadows of the palace, began to isolate the Duke of Sussex long before this secret meeting took place. It was a strategic redistribution of duties, a trial by exposure where the institution began to test its survival without one of its most charismatic members. What you have to realize is that in the royal world, silence in a family is one thing, but silence in a public institution is another entirely. They didn't just manage the optics, they tried to control reality itself. William's shift from a supportive brother to a cold steward of the legacy wasn't personal, it was institutional survival. He had to decide if the monarchy could still function as a fairy tale, or if it had to admit it was a mortal system capable of bleeding. The tension between duty and devotion reached a fever pitch as the palace machine prioritized stability over transparency. Like a clock in a great hall where the gears have worn down, if the gears aren't fixed, the whole system breaks when it's needed most. Tonight, William proved he is willing to discard the broken pieces to keep the clock ticking. This wasn't a routine update. It was a confession that some wounds are too deep to be healed by polished lines and royal fanfare. As the shadows grow longer at Kensington Palace, the truth is emerging from the need-to-know files. The Prince of Wales has stopped being a sibling and started being a sovereign. The writing was on the wall, and Harry was the last to see it. Behind the heavy palace gates, a different kind of storm was brewing, not one of weather, but of words that were never meant to see the light of day. For months, the whisper protocol held a tight grip on information. But tonight, the mask has officially slipped. Inside sources have leaked a subject line that is tearing through the royal household. He deserves more than silence. This wasn't a planned press release. It was a desperate act of rebellion against a system that has grown cold and mechanical. Prince William, normally the embodiment of royal poise, reportedly stood in the center of a heated conflict with the very advisors tasked with protecting the crown's image. According to internal reports, the tension between the prince and the palace machine reached a breaking point during a private summit. William was faced with a chilling choice: protect the institutional narrative of perfection, or honor the messy, painful reality of his family's bloodline. What you need to understand is that silence in a public institution like the monarchy is never accidental. It is a calculated strategy to control the narrative and keep the taxpayer from seeing the cracks in the foundation. But the cracks have become too wide, like an ancient house where you can no longer hide the structural failure by hanging a few more royal portraits. A private letter, written by the prince himself, has reportedly been discovered, and its contents are being described by insiders as a confession rather than a routine statement. It is a document that reveals the true cost of power and the terrifying reality of what happens when a royal heir is forced to choose between his throne and his heart. The Whisper Protocol was designed to ensure continuity, but it failed to account for the human element, the raw, unfiltered grief of a brother who has finally decided that the institution he serves can no longer shield him from the truth. This leak wasn't transparency. It was truth being dragged into the light at the last possible moment. As the gears of the monarchy continue to turn, the writing is on the wall. The golden era of polished secrecy is over, and the crown will never be worn the same way again. The air inside the private chambers was not just cold, it felt terminal. This was the moment the theatrical stage of the monarchy finally collapsed, and the curtain was pulled back to reveal the gears within. Prince William and Prince Harry stood face to face, but they were no longer looking at each other. They were looking at two different versions of the future. William, the man who has spent his life being groomed to own the story, realized that loyalty to love in the royal world often clashes with loyalty to legacy. In this secret meeting, the tragedy wasn't found in a heated argument, but in the chilling, professional silence that filled the room. William reportedly used the very language the palace has used for decades: privacy, space, and the stability of the institution. It was a strategic redistribution of authority, where Harry was not being assisted, but sidelined. To William, the monarchy is like an ancient house with cracked walls. You don't fix it by hanging more family portraits. You have to address the structural failure, even if that means removing a piece of the foundation. This was the Whisper Protocol, in its most ruthless execution. Not a discussion, but a trial by exposure. William stood as the architect of this new era, a man who has decided that if the crown is to survive, it must be humanized only through those who are willing to follow the script. Harry, looking for a brother, found instead the cold, unblinking eyes of a future king who had already made his choice. The silence was the confession. There is no room for a rebel prince in a system that is fighting for its very survival. As William walked away, the gears of the monarchy turned without a sound, leaving Harry in a state no crown could shield him from, haunted by a legacy that had finally chosen duty over blood. This wasn't a routine update. It was a turning point for everyone who still believes the crown is just a harmless fairy tale. While the world was fixated on the visible fracture between two brothers, the real reset of the monarchy was happening in the shadows, led by a woman who has mastered the art of silence. Princess Catherine wasn't in the room during the secret meeting, but her influence was everywhere. It was in the very air the brothers breathed. She is no longer just a supporting royal. She has become the stabilizer of a trembling institution. The silent architect who understood that to save the monarchy, the palace machine had to be rebooted, not just repaired. For months, as the brothers clashed, Catherine maintained a composure that was as strategic as it was graceful. She didn't offer public statements or emotional outbursts. She simply filled the void. Every time a role was vacated, every time a shadow grew longer over the family's legacy, She stepped in with a precision that left the media and Harry stunned. This wasn't just assistance. It was a quiet, irreversible replacement. Inside the palace, they call it the Catherine Doctrine. The idea that the future of the crown depends on a perfect, unshakable image that cannot be compromised by personal drama or past betrayals. William reportedly looks to her not just as a wife, but as his most trusted strategist. In the moments leading up to his final decision about Harry, it was Catherine's quiet resolve that reportedly gave him the strength to choose the crown over his own blood. She understood what the others didn't. You cannot have a modern monarchy that still bleeds from ancient wounds. To move forward, the old brotherhood had to die so the new legacy could live. What the public sees as a tragic end to the brothers' relationship is, in Catherine's vision, a necessary evolution. She has watched the Whisper Protocol dismantle the Duke of Sussex's influence, and she has ensured that when the dust settles, the only story left standing is the one she has helped craft. She is the one who reset the monarchy's internal clock, shifting the focus from the scandal of the past to the duty of the future. But this power comes with a devastating price. To be the savior of the crown, she has had to witness the hollow-eyed grief of her husband and the total exile of a man she once called a brother. Behind her poised smile lies a chilling truth. In the Game of Thrones, the most dangerous players are the ones who never raise their voice. As the meeting ended and the secret documents were filed away, Catherine stood at the center of a new, colder palace, one that she helped build, stone by silent stone. While the emotional fallout of the secret meeting dominated the headlines, something far more clinical and devastating was happening behind the scenes. This is what insiders are now calling Operation Exile. It wasn't just a disagreement between brothers. It was a systematic, legal dismantling of a royal life. The palace machine, under the quiet direction of Prince William, began a process that is as irreversible as it is cold. They didn't just close the door on Harry, they changed the locks and rewrote the blueprints of the house itself. The first phase of Operation Exile was the constitutional audit. Every title, every patronymic link, and every legal standing Harry held was placed under the microscope of the Crown's most senior legal advisors. This wasn't about malice, it was about institutional survival. The palace began a quiet but deliberate review of Harry's status under the letter of royal law. Memos began to circulate with a chilling instruction. Circulation. All senior royals, excluding the Duke of Sussex. This was the ultimate exclusion, the digital and legal erasure of a prince from the very heartbeat of the monarchy. William emerged as the unflinching architect of this phase. Unlike the emotional struggles of the past, he reportedly approached this with the detached precision of a sovereign. He understood that in the modern world, power isn't just about wearing a crown. It's about controlling the flow of authority. Harry wasn't just being sidelined. His access to sensitive diplomatic briefings and internal royal communications was quietly curtailed. He was being treated not as a family member in exile, but as a foreign entity that no longer fit the internal architecture of the state. But the most heart-wrenching twist of Operation Exile was the redistribution of his symbolic legacy. Roles that Harry once held with pride, military patronages, historical titles, and ceremonial duties were not just left vacant. They were strategically reassigned to those who represent the new order, specifically Princess Anne and Prince Edward. This was a trial by exposure, a clear signal to the public and the world that the monarchy has found a way to thrive without him. The machinery of the monarchy doesn't stop for heartbreak. It turns with a ruthless efficiency that Harry, in his desire for a private life, perhaps never fully anticipated. He wanted to be free of the system, but he may not have realized that the system, once challenged, has the power to make him disappear from its history books. As the legal documents were signed, and the last of his official ties were severed, the message from Kensington Palace was deafeningly clear. The Duke of Sussex is no longer part of the future. He is now a footnote in a story that William has finished writing. Across the vast expanse of the Atlantic, in the sun-drenched but now suffocating silence of Montecito, the shockwaves of William's final decision landed like a silent detonation. This was the moment that Harry and Meghan had both feared and, in their darkest hours, perhaps expected. But expectation does not lessen the sting of a public execution of one's legacy. The news of the secret meeting and the subsequent Operation Exile didn't arrive via a brotherly phone call. It arrived through the same cold digital channels as the rest of the world. For Harry, this wasn't just a political defeat. It was a catastrophic personal betrayal. Sources close to the Sussexes describe the atmosphere in their home as one of shattered vindication. Meghan, ever the perceptive observer of palace mechanics, reportedly saw the writing on the wall long before the ink was dry. In private circles, she is said to have viewed the total dismantling of Harry's royal standing as a mirror to her own exit. Only this time, the machinery was moving with a terrifying, public loudiness. "They did it to me quietly," she allegedly whispered to a close confidant. "Now, they are erasing him in front of the whole world." But for Harry, the pain is more visceral, more primal. He didn't just lose a job or a title. He lost the bridge to his past. The realization that William, his arch-nemesis and once his only ally, has become the very embodiment of the palace machine is a psychological blow that no amount of Californian sunshine can heal. He is now a man without a country, a prince without a palace, standing on the shores of a new life while watching the lights of his old world go out one by one. The scream from the ocean isn't an outburst of anger. It is the haunting silence of a man who realized that his desire for freedom was used as the very justification for his permanent exclusion. He wanted to be just Harry, but he may not have understood that in the eyes of the crown, just Harry is a threat to the sovereign William. The conflict between blood and bone has reached its most tragic conclusion. A family turned into a fortress, and a brother turned into a ghost. As the sun sets over the Pacific, the distance between London and California has never felt more infinite. The gears of the monarchy turned, and in their wake, they left a trail of broken trust and a void that no press release can ever fill. The exile is no longer a choice. It is a reality written in the cold, unyielding language of the throne. As the dust of the secret meeting began to settle, and the public continued to reel from the news of Harry's permanent exile, a final, heart-wrenching twist emerged from the shadows of the palace. It wasn't a leaked document or a royal decree. It was a single, handwritten letter found in the aftermath of the confrontation. A note that William reportedly left for Harry, intended only for his eyes, but now whispered about in the most restricted circles of the royal household. This wasn't a letter of reconciliation. It was a cold, surgical confession of a bond that has been sacrificed for the sake of a 1,000-year-old institution. The envelope was reportedly marked with a chilling, formal phrase, "To whom the throne may concern." Those who have been briefed on its contents say the language was raw, unfiltered, and devastatingly honest. In the letter, William reportedly didn't speak as a brother, but as a man burdened by contradictions and haunted by the very legacy he is forced to protect. He didn't offer apologies, he offered a verdict. One line in particular has sent shockwaves through those who know of it. "I loved you, but I feared the chaos you brought to the only thing I have left to serve." It was a statement that sliced through decades of shared history, revealing a truth that is darker than any tabloid speculation. William reportedly confessed that he had long wrestled with the decision to finalize Harry's exile, not because he lacked compassion, but because the palace machine demands a total surrender of personal feelings. He admitted that he saw Harry's desire for a private life not as a pursuit of happiness, but as a structural failure that threatened the stability of the crown. The letter suggests that William had known for years that this day would come, that the bridge between them was not burned by Harry's exit, but dismantled, piece by piece, by William's own growing commitment to the throne. This was the final cruelty to admit that in the eyes of the future king, the brother he once protected had become a liability that needed to be erased. William wrote about the burden of the crown with a terrifying intimacy, explaining that the institution is not kind to fragility, and that he had chosen to kill the memory of their brotherhood so the monarchy could survive the modern age. It was a confession of a man who has become hollow-eyed from the weight of his own decisions A man who has decided that he would rather rule alone than risk the legacy of his ancestors for a love that no longer fits the script. As the ink dries on that letter, and the silence from Kensington Palace grows even more deafening, the world is left with the image of a king in waiting who has finally dropped the mask. He didn't just exile his brother. He admitted that he feared him, and in the royal world, fear is the ultimate justification for erasure. This wasn't just a letter. It was the final nail in the coffin of the House of Windsor's most tragic legend. The brotherhood didn't just end. It was methodically executed by the very person who was supposed to keep it alive. While the world remains in a state of profound shock, reeling from the devastating revelations of William's private letter, a new world order has been quietly but decisively established within the ancient stone walls of Buckingham Palace. This is no longer a season of negotiations, hollow promises, or the fragile hope of reconciliation. We are officially witnessing the rise of a monarchy without Harry, an era where Prince William, as the heir to the throne, has formally taken command of the palace machine with a cold determination that far exceeds the predictions of even the most seasoned royal experts. This shift is not merely found in dry press releases or updates to the official website. It is woven into every strategic move of the highest-level advisors. This new order prioritizes absolute stability, iron discipline, and untainted loyalty. William has completely shed the image of the conflicted, tortured brother of the past. He has truly become a shadow king, one who understands deeply that for the crown to endure the storms of the modern age, the rot of personal drama and family scandal must be cut away without mercy. Every plan for the future, from massive state ceremonies to long-term legacy projects, has been meticulously rewritten. The name Harry has not just been sidelined, it has been systematically purged from the strategic files and the future power maps of the monarchy. This is a systematic erasure, a cleansing of history that will be remembered as the most ruthless lesson in institutional survival. Princess Catherine, acting as the guardian of this new rhythm, has perfectly executed her role in the shadows. She is no longer just a symbol of grace and poise. She has become the final protector of the traditional values that William has reset. Her commanding yet calm presence at every public event is a silent, razor-sharp message to the world. We are the future, we are the stability, and we do not need anyone else to shine or to protect this veil of power. While Harry and Meghan are still struggling with their desperate screams from across the ocean, the palace machine in London is operating with terrifying efficiency and absolute precision. The roles, titles, and influence Harry once held are not being left vacant for a single second. They have been filled by faces representing loyalty, discipline, and a unified vision. This is the most painful emotional killshot William has delivered to Harry. Absolute invisibility. Nothing is more cruel than being treated as if you never existed, being turned into a stranger within your own home and bloodline. William has proven to the world, and to his brother, that he is prepared to ascend the throne alone, carrying the 1,000-pound weight of the crown, but refusing to let any emotional baggage slow his stride. This new order has no room for weakness, rebellion, or divergent personalities. It is a steel structure built on the sacrifice of brotherhood in exchange for the eternal survival of an empire. As the final preparations for the day William officially holds supreme power are quietly carried out behind closed doors, the world is beginning to realize a terrifying and irreversible truth. William is not just preparing to be king in the future, he is already the king ruling the present, in the way he has executed his own past and nailed his brother's fate into the darkness of forgotten history. As the final echoes of the secret meeting fade into the history of the House of Windsor, we are left standing in the wreckage of a brotherhood that once defined the hope of a modern monarchy. This is the end of the road. There are no more bridges to burn, because the land on which they stood has been completely reclaimed by the sea of institutional necessity. Prince William has emerged not just as a successor, but as a sovereign who has finalized the most tragic trade-off in royal history. He has secured the crown, but he has lost his brother forever. The legacy of this split is not just a family feud. It is a constitutional execution. By confirming the tragic end to Harry's return, William has signaled to the world that the new order of the British monarchy is one of cold, unyielding efficiency. The palace machine has successfully reset itself, purged of the unpredictability and the emotional rot that the Sussexes represented in the eyes of the courtiers. But look closely at the cost. Behind the polished state dinners and the perfectly timed balcony appearances, there is an empty chair that can never be filled. The image of the two boys walking behind their mother's coffin, once the ultimate symbol of unity, has now become a haunting ghost of what could have been. What we are witnessing is the irreversible future. William and Catherine have built a fortress of stability, but it is a fortress built on the silence of exile. The Whisper Protocol has done its job. The legal erasures of Operation Exile are complete, and the final letter has been delivered. Harry is no longer a prince of the realm in any way that matters to the state. He is a ghost haunting the shores of California, while William stands alone on the summit of power. This is the emotional kill shot that the monarchy has dealt to itself. It has proven it can survive anything, but in doing so, it has proven it can be chillingly heartless. As the cameras pan away from the silent gates of the palace tonight, the truth remains written in the cold stone. The crown may still shine, but it will never be worn the same way again. The story of William and Harry has transitioned from a tale of two brothers into a tragic legend of power and sacrifice. William has chosen his destiny, and in that choice, he has accepted a lonely throne. The monarchy has been saved, but the family is gone. This wasn't just a meeting, it was the final curtain call on an era that will never return. The silence is now permanent. Thank you for watching this deep dive analysis. The gates are closed, the letters are locked away, and the future is settled. But the question remains, was the survival of the crown worth the death of the Brotherhood? Only history will be the final judge. Don't forget to like and subscribe as we continue to decode the secrets behind the veil of power.